In this short video I'll be showing some recent images that I took at a jet ski event in the UK. For this I was using the Olympus EM1X camera body. The EM1X is Olympus's flagship camera, and although I have previously used both my EM1 Mark II and my Mark III for sports photography, the EM1X is the body that I prefer. There are many reasons I chose the EM1X, but the main one is that with the bigger body and the built-in vertical grip, it is easy to change from shooting horizontal to vertical mode. The jet ski event was held at Wyboston Lakes, just outside of St Neots in Cambridgeshire. Jet ski events are held throughout the UK, and you can find out about the locations of each individual heat on the JSRA website. They are usually held over a weekend. The event at Wyboston Lakes is free entry, so you do not need a press pass or media pass to photograph here, so that's a big advantage. Because you will be photographing from the area where the spectators stand, you will need a telephoto lens. The two lenses that I used were either the 300mm f4 or the 40-150 f2.8. The 40-150 I often used coupled with the MC14 converter. Because the image stabilising on the Olympus system is so good, I could handhold these lenses quite easily. Some of the other photographers who were there who were using DSLRs were using lenses of 500mm and 600mm, and they were having to support their lenses on either tripods or monopods. One big advantage of being able to handhold was it allowed me to be more mobile so that I could be constantly move around to change my framing, composition and viewpoint. I set the focusing to continual autofocus. This is because as the subject is moving towards me, I need the camera to continually hold the focus. I did also use continual autofocus plus tracking, and this also worked well, but I found there was very little difference in the results between the two methods of focusing. Because I'm used to using continual autofocus for my normal shooting, I decided to stay with what I was used to. For focusing, I used a small cluster of focusing points. This enabled the camera to lock onto the subject well. When I got home and looked at the images I downloaded onto my computer, I found that I achieved a very high percentage of shots that were pin sharp. I set the motor drive to sequential low silent. This meant I could achieve a burst rate of 18 frames per second. I could have used the high setting, but this would have meant even more images to sort through when I got home. As it was, I ended up shooting over 3,000 images throughout the day. This resulted in me having to spend quite a bit of time on the computer sorting out the keepers from the ones that I would delete. I was aiming for a high shutter speed of 2,000th of a second or above. Because the lighting was soft overcast lighting for most of the day, I could easily achieve these shutter speeds without having to rank up the ISO. Most shots were taken at 400 ISO, although when it became more overcast I did increase this to ISO 800. Because there is a lot of water and spray, this can fool a camera's exposure meter into thinking there is more light than there is, which would lead to an underexposed image. One advantage of a mirrorless camera system is that you can see the exposure in the viewfinder, so you do not have to be constantly checking and re-evaluating your exposure. What you see in the viewfinder is what you get. I found that for most shots I was having to increase the exposure by roughly 2/3 of a stop. Pictures can look particularly strong when you have one jet ski out in front, followed by another chasing hard behind it. Because I was shooting with a wide open aperture of f4 on both lenses, the depth of field was quite shallow, and this enabled me to keep the jet ski at the front sharp, but rendered the second jet ski slightly out of focus. There was an area in the course where the riders would hit an obstacle which would make them jump out of the water. If they hit this obstacle at speed, it did produce some quite dramatic pictures. For these shots I positioned myself directly in line where the boat would be jumping out of the water. Here I turned the camera into portrait format because I felt this gave the strongest composition, and using the 300mm lens gave me an almost frame-filling shot. Again, these pictures were improved if you had another rider chasing hard in the background. In one part of the course you could actually time it to get two riders side by side. In this picture I was fortunate enough to get both of them level. You only needed to have one a few foot behind the other one, and you'd have one sharp and one slightly out of focus. But fortunately on this picture they were both neck and neck, so I managed to get them both sharp in the same frame. I hope you enjoyed the video and found it helpful. Jet ski is a very visual sport, and the advantage is that you can photograph it without the need for it to apply for a press or media pass, so it is ideal for amateur photographers. Please check out my other YouTube videos, and thanks for watching.